I've logged in. We are continuing from yesterday where we stopped, and I remember it was a very long session that took us almost 3 hours. But we are just to complete the few slides that we're left with. And I believe you still remember the module we are on, and that is hospital infrastructure and facility management. And yesterday we basically handling considerations in hospital design. And I told you hospital design has a very it's a long topic, and we couldn't finish all the slides. So we are going to continue from where we stopped, and today we're on the 84th slide, and I think there are about 96 slides in one session. So we are going to continue from hospital athletics. So we basically want to know the principles, including looking at the beauty of the hospital. When you enter in the hospital, you're just going to see how the hospital is looking like, just to feel it and all that. So when you look at this, it's basically going to refer to so many things. When a patient comes to your hospital, he's going to see how your hospital is looking at, the beauty of your hospital, just the environment and about the inside. So when the patient sees out, he will be interested in wanting to see what is inside. So let's start from this point. There are elements that are influencing the appearance and impression of the hospital. So basically, I want us to look at the elements, and those elements include the color that you're going to use for painting the hospital, the different spaces or the different units also matters with the services that you're going to offer. Then lighting, then you're going to affect actually the service provision. And when we don't have the natural light, which is the sun, then we have to provide the artificial light, but should be able to serve the same purpose as the hospital athletics. Then the texture is just looking at about the floor, the walls, and everything surrounding the hospital, even the linen. And the linen is basically like the sheets you're going to use in different beds in case you have admission area. And then also we look at the windows. You're going to put curtains. So those curtains is what we try to look at. What is the texture? Just the feel of it is very important. Then the shape of the rooms, or the spaces that you're going to use also is something that is related with athletics. So there is a lot of designing in it, and when they design, it should be able to attract the attention and the feel of your patients. And the patterns also are just like drawings. And yesterday, I remember I mentioned about pediatric ward. And in pediatric ward, you realize there are so many drawings that are put around the walls, just trying to decorate different diagrams, which can help actually to attract the attention of these children. And art affecting mood. So the mood also will be affected with the art that you put around your hospital. It can either give someone to be impressed or someone to be depressed. So the art also contributes a lot in the patient's moods when we are providing our services. Then the atmosphere, just within the environment of your hospital, within the wards where you're providing the services, the spaces, you have to provide a conducive atmosphere to your patients so that you can be able to provide actually good services to your clients. And identity is very key in a way that when a patient enters in the hospital, he's able to identify that in this area, this kind of service is the one that is being offered. Or even just your signpost alone, the way it looks like, the way you've drawn, and the different symbols is also very key. That one can help to show the identity of the different services that you're offering, and also the person who is looking for the hospital can look at the identity of the hospital, where we have this actually the person who is looking for the hospital. Then hospital ethics, the principles are as follows. We want to know the principles, because when you have the ethics, you have to follow the principles, and each and everything there should be principles in creating a visually pleasing and comforting environment that positively impacts on the mood, the atmosphere, and identity of the healthcare facility. So that's what aesthetics is. It has to impact on the attention, the focus, the environment, and also when the patient sees what is around your hospital, he gets pleased with it to our hospitals. But when they look at the environment is not attractive, they look at everything around it, it destabilizes their mood, and they're like, why did I come into this place? But when the aesthetics or the beauty, the atmosphere around the environment within your hospital is very pleasing, then it's also going to attract the attention of your patients, and they are going to be impressed, and they will also have to be satisfied with your services just by looking at the environment. What is the importance of hospital aesthetics? We don't just to the service delivery and also to our patients. So the significance basically is aesthetic considerations can enhance the patient's experience, improve the staff morale, and also promote a sense of well-being. So when you consider to have aesthetics that is impressive in your hospital, then you just know that you're going to enhance your patient's experience. And yesterday we talked about the experience of our patients, and I remember experience or a bad experience, depending on what they go through in your hospital. So the aesthetics is very important because it can help our patients have a good experience when they are with us, because of the environment which is conducive and can give them that impressive feeling within the environment. Then also the staffs, when you're working in a place that is so beautiful, it boosts your morale also to provide what are the services. So it promotes a sense of well-being. A sense of well-being is when you're in a place which is clean, a place that is looking nice, you feel very comfortable, and also it promotes your well-being in one other way. So it's good for us to think about aesthetics, looking at those very aspects that I've mentioned: the patient's experience, the staff's morale, and then the sense of well that we have to actually consider during the hospital aesthetics. Patients come to us and they expect us to provide for them the necessary requirements, so the necessary things that they have come to actually look for from us. So creating that healing environment is very key, in the way that even the services that we provide besides the environment can be supported by the good environment. Then reducing stress. We reduce stress in our environment when we do this aesthetics in a way that we look at the principles in relation to the hospital. So even the staffs who are providing the services, they will be able to at least reduce their stress, because when they come from their homes, maybe somebody has stress. When she reaches the hospital, there is stress, which is not good. So at least when the hospital is a conducive environment for them, it helps them to reduce that stress, not only to our staffs but also to our patients. They are stressed because of being sick, and so let the environment not stress them too. So when we do this aesthetics in a good way, following the principles, then we are able to provide a good environment which can also help to reduce their stress. And then it also helps to foster positive impression People look at your hospital and get impressed with whatever they are seeing around the environment, inside the wards or inside the working spaces, and they really wonder how it has been modified in that manner, but it's all just because of the principles of aesthetics. So in aesthetics, we mentioned the different elements, and one of the elements was color. So I want us to talk about the color. So color, the use of color can influence emotions of our patients, and then the perceptions of our patients and their behavior. So some people look at different colors, and those different colors have different meanings. So when someone sees a yellow color, she has meaning because of maybe looking at that color. When someone sees pink, they also have a meaning out of it. When someone sees blue, they also have a meaning out of it. So the colors that we use in our wards, maybe painting the hospital, and that is all aesthetics, we actually have to put into consideration of the services that we offer. So it plays a crucial role in setting the tone of the hospital space. So when you're designing your hospital, you've already got a space maybe for a medical services, like for the case of I can give an example of maybe pediatrics. When you're providing pediatric services, these children need to have brighter colors, whereby when they enter in the ward, those colors can attract them. And when those colors attract them, they take up their attention, and they at least sometimes forget that they are sick unless they are very ill. But those colors are very key and very important for us to put them in relation to the services that we offer in our different hospital spaces. Then color psychology, as I already mentioned about someone interpreting a color in a way that she understands the meaning. It also explores the psychological aspect or effects of when someone sees a blue color, that color means it's calm. So blue means calmness, and then green for healing. So when they look at that color, it gives them a meaning. And warm tones for comfort. So when you put those kind of colors in your different hospital workspaces, they give meaning, and your patients will derive meaning out of it, and only that can help them have the confidence on what you're going to provide. So different colors have different meanings, and we have to put these colors in those different hospital spaces where we provide different services, and they should be related to the services that we offer in those different spaces. I mentioned about lighting, and I gave an example of natural and artificial lighting. So proper lighting design impacts visibility, mood, and comfort. So it's essential for patient care, staff productivity, and energy efficiency. So when you don't have enough lighting, then it's going to affect your service delivery. Your staffs are not able to see what they're supposed to do. And also in case they need to maybe use electricity, it is not there, it will affect their services. But for the case of the natural light is very good in a way that it also helps us to reduce expenses. Like during day, we always use the natural light, whereby we basically use the sun. And those radiations also help us to produce vitamin D in our bodies, which is very important for health. So I want to say that natural versus artificial lighting, we really need to understand and to know the benefits of natural light and the design of artificial lighting for different areas. So why do we need natural lighting in some specific areas when we are providing services? And why do we need artificial lighting in some areas when we are providing services? So I want us to think about that, and we really need to research on it and get to understand the importance of natural light versus artificial lighting. Why do we consider to use natural lighting, and why do we consider to use artificial lighting in different hospital spaces? And you get to understand the importance of each kind of it, and you'll appreciate. But I wanted to say that for the natural lighting, it helps us to reduce the costs in the hospital because we don't use electricity during the day, and it also helps us to generate vitamin D in our bodies, because vitamin D is good when you actually get yourself into these radiations of light, but not very hot. So it gives us some of the benefits. Then also artificial lighting is very important because when we want to run our machines that we use for providing services, like in the laboratories, during the time of surgeries, sometimes when we are doing other investigations like the scanning and the x-rays, we need the natural and artificial lighting, and whereby we need this other support so that we can be able to run our machines and offer those services. And we mentioned about texture, and texture is one of the elements of our design and the aesthetics, and because of that we need to understand what texture is. So texture refers to the surface quality of materials and finishes. It also influences tactile sensation and visual interest. So what do you mean by this? I gave an example of curtains. I gave an example of bed sheets, whereby when you're providing your patient bed sheets, to look at the texture. When you're buying whatever linen or clothes that you need to use in the ward or in the hospital, you should consider the texture. And when you look at the texture, it should not be a rough texture, but it should be smooth texture for both if you're using on the bed, the curtains, and so forth. So this one can influence a lot of things, whereby your patient may appreciate or may not appreciate, just because of the type of bed sheet that he or she was given. So the texture matters on the linen or on the clothes that you're using. Also, when you talk about the quality of other materials we are talking about can be maybe timber, it can be furniture. The furniture that we are using also matters, the texture matters. You cannot bring chair which is very rough and you give to your patient, no. So the texture of even the furniture matters. Then you want to talk about the flooring. The floor should not be rough. We want to talk about the walls. The walls also should not be rough. They should be smooth. The floor should be smooth, and all that. So the atmosphere around should be so good and so calm for your patient. So the texture is very key for also when you're designing your hospital, you have to look at that. And when you're looking at the aesthetics, you have to put that into consideration so that you can be able to maintain the beauty of each and everything surrounding your patients. Let's talk about the shape. The shape is one of the elements that is in aesthetics. So when you look at the shape can be in form of maybe the room where the patient is, the spaces where you're providing your services. You have to look at the shape. What kind of shape is that space? And when you provide from that space and all that. So the form and geometry of objects and spaces impact aesthetics. So the shape of the rooms or the spaces where you're going to provide the service can impact on the aesthetics. And I remember I said aesthetics is just the beauty, how the environment, how those working areas look like. So that is the beauty. So the shape of the working space or the objects around can impact on the aesthetics, can impact on the beauty of your hospital or your working space. The choice of shape can also convey various messages. So geometry is just a branch of mathematics concerned with the properties of space, such as the distance, the shape, the size, and relative position of figures. For example, you can make maybe a space in form of a triangle, in form of a rectangle. So when you put it in that form, does it portray any kind of beauty? How does it look like? So you have to put that into consideration. And when you're making those spaces in those kind of shapes, you have to consider also mathematics. You have to calculate, you have to see the distance. So this side, how long should it be? Just in that manner, and you'll be able to create a very nice kind of shape of any space that you want, and that one can impact on aesthetics. Healing space, discuss the use of curves and organic forms in healthcare design to create a soothing and non-threatening environment that helps to reduce stress and create a sense of comfort and spaces. When you're designing them, the shapes that you are going to put for different kind of, and you can't put one patient in a very large room. Maybe it is in form of a square but is too large, and the patient is alone in that room. Besides it, there are no other things like any amenities in it. So this can also affect the patient's mood and also the psychological state of your patient, and some of them can get stressed and so forth. So you have to look at the shape. Is this shape a shape of comfort? Is this shape a shape that is going to promote your healing besides the drugs that you're going to administer to your patient? Spaces in the hospital, you have to know what kind of shape you need it to be, and is it really some shape that is good for the services that you're going to offer in that space. One of the elements, patterns can add visual interest, rhythm, and familiarity to hospital spaces. I mentioned about like drawings, some of the diagrams in relation to maybe pictures. It can be like numbers, flowers. It can be in form of animals for the case of the children, whereby when they enter in the ward and they see those patterns, they get also related to adults. When you have some of these patterns in those different hospital spaces, some of them can take the attention of our patients and they get impressed. So the patterns that we put in these different hospital spaces have to matter in a way that they are able to promote healing. They're able to promote to give pleasure to our patients, good impression about our hospital, and in that way are able to satisfy actually our patients' need. So you have to select a good pattern that you think suits the environment and suits the services that are offered in that working space. So for the case of the pattern selection, we really need to provide examples of appropriate patterns for different areas, such as calming patterns in patient rooms. Some of the rooms, they need to have just simple patterns that cannot disturb their minds. And when they are resting in those rooms and looking at those patterns, they are just very comfortable and they are calm. Other than the patterns that take away their minds, that scares them, and it actually destabilizes their stay in the hospital and affects their experiences when they are in the hospitals. Let's look at the art. What is art? So artwork in hospitals can inspire, soothe, and create a sense of fully created and placed. So I believe all of us know what art is. Art can be in form of drawing. Art can be in form of someone making just like a model of something and just puts it in a certain corner. And then art can be, you can draw anything of any kind to actually simulate something. So when you're doing this art in a hospital, you have to look at how it's going to impact on your patients. So for the case of the artwork in the hospital, we have to make sure that it's something that inspires our patients. It's something that makes them to feel comfortable in the areas that they are in. So we really want to discuss the use of art therapy and the selection of art pieces that resonate with patients and staff. So it's not only on the side of the patients, but we also want to look at art on the side of the staffs. So how does this art influence the service provision to your staff? So whatever you put as an art in different spaces contributes a lot both to your staffs and to your patients. So the art has a big role to play in different working areas, in different hospital spaces in relation to service delivery. So art includes painting, the way you've painted the walls, the way you've painted actually different sections of the hospital, the spaces matters. So it may not be the first line treatment, but their presence in caring spaces can have a bearing on long-term health outcomes. So there are different things that people look at when they come to your hospital. So the way you paint, the colors that you use, the design, all that contributes a lot to the outcome of your patients when they come to your hospital. Creating mood and atmosphere. And we talked about the atmosphere of the hospital should be a conducive atmosphere which makes our patients to feel comfortable and confident of the services that we are offering. So we need to create a good mood to our patients, and creating a good mood to our patients depends on the aesthetics. So we have to discuss the role of aesthetics in shaping the overall mood and atmosphere of the hospital. So aesthetics is basically looking at beauty, the outlook of the hospital, the impression it gives also gives the impression to what services we are offering, the quality of the services we are offering, and all that. So aesthetics and also the atmosphere within the hospital spaces. So in case of any hospital that you know, we can take it as a case study. So we have visited very many hospitals, different hospitals, some of our own illnesses, and we have seen how these hospitals are. And when you enter the hospital, you just look at the atmosphere around, the outlook of the hospital, and that can create your mood, either to be impressed of having the interest to go and seek for the services, or sometimes you may this place, let me look for another place, and it can be due to just the way the atmosphere of that environment in the hospital is, and also the way the mood of the hospital is can make you either continue to seek the service or decide to look for the service somewhere. So creating the mood and the atmosphere of the hospital is through aesthetics. Aesthetics is more of the beauty. So when there is good beauty in the environment, then also give that good atmosphere, which will showcase hospitals known for their successful use of aesthetics to create a healing environment. Some of us might have visited those hospitals and we know them, and we have ever been in them. And when you look at them, you really see this is aesthetics. This is the beauty of designing the hospital. The other element in aesthetics is identity and branding. So we need to explain how aesthetics contributes to a hospital identity and brand. So aesthetics, as you said about the beauty, is basically to look at the identity and the branding. We can give an identity in relation to the entire hospital. and we can give an identity in relation to the different hospital spaces. And that one relates to the different services that we offer in those different spaces. So the identity can be in form of a picture of a woman who is pregnant, and that one you can be able to tell in this hospital space this is what is provided. Or you can find where they have put a baby, and when you see the baby you just know this is a children's ward, and you're able to tell that you are going to the children's ward, and that is like an identity which is trying to show the different services that are provided in those different hospital spaces. Then the branding, we know all about branding. To brand is like selling, giving that good nice name and offering those good expensive and specialized services. So it's all in relation to aesthetics, and aesthetics is all about beauty. So when you want to identify something, you don't identify it with something wrong, but you have to identify it with something good. So for the case of aesthetics, you can design any logo that can mean maybe the hospital. You can design the signpost which is containing maybe the name of the hospital and its relation to your identity. And the branding. The branding can be the name, it can be the design in any way that can show that this is such a hospital, or these are the kind of services that are offered in that hospital space. So identity and branding is very key. So this explains how aesthetics contributes to a hospital's identity and branding. So consistency is very key. So you have to emphasize the importance of maintaining a consistent aesthetic across the hospital. So aesthetics has not to be only in one hospital space, but you have to make sure that aesthetics cuts across in all different spaces in the hospital. So when you have good aesthetics in the administration, you have to make sure that you have also good aesthetics in the other working spaces, whether it means being in theater, whether it means being in the mortuary, whether it means being in the canteen where they sell foods for your patients, whether it means to be in delivery spaces. There should be also good aesthetics across the entire hospital, and that one will help to give an identity of the hospital as a very beautiful hospital, a hospital that gives pleasure to their patients, and can also be like a brand for your patients and your clients. And they look at the hospital, they just know, wow, this is the hospital where we get our services, and they can be able even to tell others to come to your hospital. So identity and branding is very important because it will sell you not only in one aspect of the hospital, but should be across the entire hospital, because the services are all important for each and every patient. And for you to get aesthetics, you have to actually plan for it, and that's why it is under designing of the hospital. So you have to plan, because aesthetics is one way in which you can be able to design your hospital to look beautiful, to design the environment around the hospital to look so attractive. So there are challenges in the hospital aesthetics. So you have to highlight some of these challenges. For example, budget constraints, the regulatory requirements, and the need to balance aesthetics with functionality. So when you see all these challenges I've mentioned, you realize that if you don't have enough money and you have not budgeted well, then you cannot be able to attain good aesthetics across the hospital. So the budget constraints can also hospital. You may need to put a good identity, but because of that constrained budget that you have, you're not able to actually do it the way that you expect, the way that you would planned. So this can be one of the challenges that you can face in your hospital aesthetics. And then regulatory requirements. There are some regulations that can also be put across, and those regulations can hinder you in the way of putting some aesthetics that you think could help you maybe promote or sell your hospital and advertise it. But now, when you follow those regulations, you realize that you may also actually affect some of your services. You may end up actually losing some of them. So those are the challenges that you can easily have during the time of hospital aesthetics. So regulatory requirements can also affect you in a way that you may not able to meet them, or you may be restricted with some of them and you fail to actually implement them in your hospital aesthetics. And also the need to balance aesthetics and functionality. So you have to balance them in a way that you cannot override the functionality of your hospital because you want to prioritize aesthetics. So you may end up actually considering functionality and then you leave aesthetics, and in that way it is a challenge that you cannot complete these two activities at the same time. So it gets affected, and it is one of the challenges that you can experience during the hospital aesthetics. So patient-centered aesthetics, what does it mean? Patient-centered aesthetics of your patient in aesthetics discussions are to create a more patient-centered environment. So the patient-centered aesthetics is basically involving your patients, so give you a guide. They can guide you, they can advise you, they can tell you actually what you're expected to do. And that's why when we started our hospital planning and designing, we say the stakeholders are very key, and some of the stakeholders are those very people that you provide the services. So even in this patient-centered aesthetics, you are looking at what kind of aesthetics, what kind of design, what kind of colors, what kind of environment do you think that your patients can be happy with? If I created this kind of thing within this environment and the patients come and they see, will they admire, or some of them will wonder why it's put in that way? So we have to put patients as a point of focus when we are planning for aesthetics in our hospitals, because when we don't have patient-centered aesthetics, then we are going to waste our resources and to not cause any impact in our patients. They will come to our hospitals, they will impact that they are really seeing in relation to our aesthetics. So we have to discuss the importance of involving patients in aesthetics decisions to create a more patient-centric environment. So they really need to be part of it so that they can enjoy the environment and the atmosphere within our hospitals. So I want us to look at this very critically in a way that you can have a small discussion amongst yourselves and you get to understand what is really the importance of us involving our patients in this process of aesthetics. And when you're starting your hospital, I want to say that we have to consider patients in everything that we do, because they can guide us in our planning, they can guide us in our decision making, they can guide us in even the different services that we offer to them. Because you can plan for something, but when you do it, your patients may not appreciate. You look like you have wasted. Sustainability and aesthetics. What are we trying to look at in this? So I want us to explore more how sustainable design principles can be integrated into hospital aesthetics, creating visually appealing, eco-friendly space. So we really need to sustain this aesthetics in our environment so that it can help us actually to have that eco-friendly spaces within our hospital so that our patients can appreciate. So when our patients are with us and they are appreciating, then we can be friendly to our patients. And it is very important for a patient to be friendly to a health provider. Because if your patient comes to the hospital and he's not actually friendly to you, and the environment is not friendly, and everything around him is not friendly, then it is going to affect your relationship with your patient. There is what they call a physician to patient relationship. It's very key because a patient can open to you and tell you about what is going on, about what he's feeling, about his experiences, about his challenges, about his problem. And remember, when we get a good history from our patients, that's why we are able also to derive either the diagnosis or the problem of our patients. And when we get the right problem or the right diagnosis, then we are able to derive the right treatment to address the issues of our patients. So it's very important for us to understand the sustainability and ethics. So sustainability and ethics is very important. It's good for us to sustain what we have already implemented, and we know that it is impacting positively to our patients. And ethics is very good in a way that it also gives that good impression to our patients, and they will always continue coming to seek for services from us. So co-friendly spaces are very good in a way that it promotes our relationship with our patients, whereby they are able to relate, they are able to interact with their health providers. Then you just know that you're going to retain these patients, and they are going even to get for you more other clients who are in your hospital. I want to say that this is the end of our session. In case of anything, you can communicate or you can ask a question and shall be able to what I wanted us to cover. And this was part of the session of yesterday. And I remember in the very beginning as we started, I said the session of yesterday was a very long one and we could not complete all the slides we had. That's why today I said let's complete this. Then tomorrow we are going to start with another new topic within the same module, which is all about hospital infrastructure and facility management. I want us to talk about hospital is very important for us very much. I wish you all a blessed night and